What's going on, guys? So today I'm going to show you how to connect your database to your Node and Express app. This is for a music talk app, an app like Facebook, but people talk about music. In previous videos, which you don't need for this one by the way, we set up Node, Express, and React. Then we planned out and created our database schema and created our database. In this video, we will connect our database to our app. So let's get into it. In this terminal here, we have our app, and inside of our app, we have a React app, which is our client, and then we have a Node and Express app, which is our server. I'll change the directory into our server, and luckily there's a MySQL npm package, and we can install that with npm install MySQL. Okay, good to go there. So then in our index.js, this is our Express app. We can make a const of MySQL and require MySQL. And this lets us use MySQL, but we still have to connect to it. So I'll pull up the MySQL package documentation. Do MySQL and npm. So we installed it, and we can do this regular connection, but they also have a connection pool option. Let me find. Here we go. So this connection pooling here, a connection pool is a cache of database connections maintained so that the connections can be reused when future requests to the database are required. Dynamic web pages without connection pooling open connections to database services as required and close them when the page is done servicing a particular request. Pages that use connection pooling, on the other hand, maintain open connections in a pool, and when the page requires access to the database, it simply uses an existing connection from the pool. So we will go with that. So I will copy this here. This we already have. A lot of times you'll see this DB. Connection limit will keep to 10. Host will do localhost. For the user, we will do the root user. And then you can enter in the password of your database. This is the password that was created when you installed MySQL on your computer, and I have a video for that, by the way, if you still need to do that. And then the name of the database that you want to connect to. And in that last video we created the database called Music Talk. So for now we'll just use this GET request to insert something into the database. So we'll do db.query. That's how you make a MySQL query. Put it in quotes. We'll say insert into, and then the users table, which we also created in the last video. Username and password. And the values that we'll enter in for those, we'll say testing for the username and 123 for the password. We'll do a comma, and then you get a callback function where it'll give us either an error or the result if it is successful. We'll say if there is an error, we will console.log that error. And if not, we will console.log the result. Save that. And now this is our project as well. In this terminal, I'll change directory into the client, which is our React app. I'll start that up so we can make that API call. Go to localhost 3000, make API call, and I have to start up my server. Node index.js, the name of the server, listening on port 8080. Now I'll make the API call, and we see this OK packet. So that's looking good. Pull up my database here, MySQL Workbench, which we also installed in a previous video. Enter in my password. We've got our music talk database here. Query all for the users table, and we see the testing 1, 2, 3. Good to go. So if you saw an error when you tried that and it said error not supported auth mode and said client does not support authentication protocol requested by server, consider upgrading MySQL client, what you can do is go to query here, and then you can paste in this, which I will put in the description for you to copy, and then you would change the password to the password to your database and then run this query, and then you can try it again and the connection should work. So now we'll make a post route in our server so that we can submit a form that a user would sign up for the app, put in their username and password, and then put that into the database. So change this to a post request, and that'll be to /signup. And then from the form we'll get a username. So go ahead and already make that variable, which we'll access through request.body.username, const password, request.body.password, and now we'll do insert into users, username, password, but now the values we will escape the values in the actual query, which I'll show you why in a second. And then we'll pass in the username and password in this array, put another comma, and then our callback function. So escaping the values before we enter it into our database. If I go back to MySQL here, we go to performing queries, and we see escaping query values. In order to avoid SQL injection attacks, you should always escape any user provided data before using it inside an SQL query. And so that's what you put the question mark and then any values in an array, and they will get escaped and entered properly. So if there's an error, we will still go ahead and console.log the error for now. And if it's successful, we'll just send back the username. Now, in order to access the username and password that we're going to get from the form that we're sending from our front end, we have to install another package on our server, which is a body parser package. So go back to the terminal here. We'll shut down the server for a sec. Do npm install body parser. And I'm going to keep making changes to the server, so I won't start it back up yet. And then up here, we'll do const body parser equals require body parser. And then app.use, which is like a middleware that's used on different requests and responses. We'll say body parser .url encoded extended false, which I'll explain this here in a second. And we'll do body parser JSON. So this body parser.url encoded, that's for parsing URL encoded data that might come from a form. Like when you see in a URL question mark, like name equals Andrew, it'd be able to parse that. And then the app.use body parser.json is for parsing JSON data that comes in. So this is all looking good here on the server. Go ahead and start up that server. Back up. And now we can build that form on the front end and send a post request to /signup. So if we go to app here, this is our React app. And in the previous video, this was the API call that we made. Let's go ahead and get rid of this button for now. Get just to a parent div. We'll do import use state from React. Which we'll use for our username and password. So that'll be a const, we'll say username and set username. Use state, that'll be an empty string by default. And we'll do password and set password. If you're unfamiliar with use state, I have a video on how to use that. Then when we submit the form, we'll go ahead and change this function to submit handler, which we'll call when we submit the form. That'll pass in an event, and we'll change this from a GET request to a POST request to where our server is listening, and then that sign up route that we created. And then sending along to that sign up route will be the username, is what we'll call it, and then we'll access it with the username here, and we'll call password password. Bring this down so it's a little easier to read, and then we'll get a callback function. And also after submitting the form, we will go ahead and clear those fields. So we'll set username to a blank string, an empty string, and we'll set password to an empty string. And by the way, username and password that we're sending over to the server. This is the request and the response, and then we're accessing that request and the body and then the username and password. That's how we're getting those, saving them to these variables with the help of the body parser package, and then sending those in here. And then this response.send, that is also the username that we're sending back. So we might redirect to the profile page and then use that username to welcome them on the profile page later. Now let's see, for the form itself, we'll have a form, and on submit, so when we submit that form, this is where we'll call that submit handler function we just created. Do an H3, it says sign up. Label HTML4, say that's for username. The label will say username. I'll duplicate that with Option Shift down. We can change this to password and this label to password. Input, say ID is username, type equals text, value will be the state that we're setting with our use state, so that'll be username. And then on change, we'll do an anonymous function and we'll get that event. And in that function, we will set username. And we'll access that event, and then the target and the value property, which is what the user's typing. So we'll be setting that to username. And again, I'll duplicate this with Option Shift down. And I'll do Command D to access these other ones. And I'll change that to password. Capitalize this one here. I'm going to click here and do Option up just to move that up. So we have the label for username and the input for username, label for password, and the input for password. I'm just going to add the buttons. So I'll do like a parent div here. Make a button, which is type button. We'll say cancel, Option Shift down. This will be a type of submit. And that button will say submit. And so now I'm going to go ahead and add in Tailwind so we can style this form. I'm going to do all the styling at once, so you're welcome to fast forward and get back to where we submit the user's data into the database, or you can learn how to install Tailwind into a React app and how to style this form. So I'm going to go to the Tailwind documentation here, go to Get Started. So we already have a React app. Go to Framework Guides, create React app. Copy these commands. Control C in my React app here. Paste that in. Add this to our Tailwind config. What was this content array here? Save that. Add the Tailwind directives into our index.css. Get rid of this. For the body, I'll just do background color equals black. Just toss that in there. Then paste those. Hit save. This app CSS, okay, and get rid of all of that. Get rid of this app CSS import. Okay, so the form here, class name, do MX auto to center it, give it some border, padding 9. And once it's a little bigger, we'll give it a little bit more padding. Width 72. Once the screen's a little bigger, say width 96. Give the border some color. Margin top 36. And height 84. For this H3 here, we'll give that a little bit of padding bottom. We'll say text 2XL, and we'll center that text, and we'll make that text white. And then for the label, make sure that displays as a block. Just a little bit of margin bottom with the input right below it. Text XL. Give it the same color as the border. Copy this, bring it straight over to the other label. Save that. See how this is looking so far. Probably hideous because we still have a little more styling to do. Okay, getting there. Don't see the buttons at all. Let's see, for these inputs, make those width full. Make them a little higher. A little bit of padding so the text isn't right on the edge. Margin bottom as well. And then the focus state, when they're clicked into it, we don't want to show that outline. So I'll take that, copy, add that to the other input. Okay, coming right along. For this parent div on the buttons, do a display flex and justify between. Spread those buttons out. And then for the buttons themselves, we'll do side padding of 3, top padding of 1. Make them a little rounded at the corners. Background, same color as the border and the labels. Paste that in there. Save that. There we go. Looking great. So this should be all set up to submit. We've got our server running here. We've got the onSubmit handler posting to our post route, passing in the username and password. That's just showing the password, so let's type text. There we go. Password as the input type. There we go. Then we hit enter and submit, and that cleared the fields. That looks good. Let's see, I didn't do the event.prevent default. Go to our database here, query the users table again, and there we go. On the front end, we were sending over the username, and then we were console.logging that data. So if I do Option Command J, pull up my console. Yeah, because it submitted, so it refreshed the page. So if we do there we go. Open this up. We have our data property. We see the username is displayed there. Alright, so that's how you connect a database to your application. In the videos ahead, we can encrypt the password before saving it to the database, which is a best practice. We can put the sign up form in its own page instead of the home page. So we'll bring in some routing functionality, some authentication, some Redux toolkit. Then we'll have users creating posts, following other users, liking posts, all kinds of stuff. So stay tuned. If you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe. Drop a comment and say what's up. And thank you very much for watching. I will catch you in the next one.